Greetings. Welcome to a Level Up Live episode 23. Yes, it is World Schooling Wednesday. Welcome to the show. If you are new to the show, first things first, we want to know where in the world you are, and I'll just show you a global map in a minute. I am beaming at you from Central France. It is 10:10 p.m. here, pitch black outside. I'm staring out the kitchen window. But when it is daylight, I can see as far as the eye can see. We are in rural France. There's hardly a building in sight. So yeah, let me know if you're new to the show, where in the world are you? Let us know, are you still locked down? I am just getting feedback in my ear, which means I'm broadcasting live to myself. And I'm just going to pause the video. Awesome, there we go. Yes, so yeah, if you are new to the show, let me know. Are you in lockdown? We have been in lockdown for about 7 or 8 weeks, but just on Monday, so it's Wednesday today, on Monday, France eased its restrictions and we were allowed out for the first time freely as a family during the lockdown, or sort of first bout of serious lockdown. The girls had not been out the house the entire time. I went out a few times to get groceries. Although when I say went out the house, I mean into civilization, so to speak. So just to put that into context, we're feeling quite blessed. We are house sitting. Actually, sorry, I'm staring at the camera, but you're just staring at a map, aren't you? Let's bring me back. Yes. So yeah, we are a world schooling family. I'll tell you just about us in a second, but we, even without lockdown, we would be in quite a lot of isolation. We are living, we're house sitting, as I say. We are in a small hamlet of 5 houses, 4 of which are occupied, 3 of which we've seen life, including our own. So only 2 other families we've sort of acknowledged the time of day with. There is no shops nearby. The nearest civilization is about 4k away, 3 to 4k away, and there we can find a boulangerie, hairdressers, and a library that's open 1.5 days a week. And the hairdressers have been closed the entire lockdown time, so really the only life has been the boulangerie, and we can hear the bells chime. So I guess there's a clock and a church tower. But that's it. And the nearest, I guess, big village or sort of small town is 20 k's away, maybe 17, 18, 19k, something like that, in either direction. And that's where we can go and get our groceries and supermarket shopping. But yeah, as I say, on Monday, France eased the restrictions and we could go out and about. So yes, are you locked down? Leave a comment in the chat. Just say yes or no, or if you feel more inclined, tell us a little bit about where you are. Which leads me to a bit of show housekeeping. So let me just change cameras. So what you should see on the screen there is a link to for how you can get involved in the show, because this is meant to be an interactive show. Kind of radio style, very informal. I'll explain why I am hosting it, or why it's called what it is, and how everything works, because that's part of the story about the show. But yes, you can come on the show. Last night, on Monday, we had Tim Lowe, fellow World Schooler, join Mashup Monday and tell us all about Facebook ads. We've had guests coming from Mexico, we've had guests coming from New Zealand, the UK, Canada. Yeah, so wherever in the world you are, please feel free to join in. Use the chat, or if you want to come on the show and talk, we can make that happen. And all you do is you use that link on the screen. It's not a clickable link, but I have put it into the live chat, so you should be able to just click on that, and that'll take you into a virtual room. And just one wee word of warning, so if you're watching this live, there is a time lag. So what you're hearing on your screen is a minute or two. You know, at the beginning it starts off a few seconds, but it sort of delays the further we go on. and so there is a lag. So what you're hearing, I've spoken, X amount of seconds ago, and when you come in on Skype, that is live and in real time. So just make sure you mute your YouTube so that you're not getting feedback or distraction by what is effectively something that's a little bit behind. But yes, by all means, say hi, introduce yourself, let me know you want to come on, and pretty much just jump into the virtual room. And the software that I'm using, and I'll get to that in a minute, will make it happen. So yeah, first bit of housekeeping. So yeah, why Level Up Live, and what's it all about, and Worldschooling Wednesday. So today I invite any world schoolers to come on, or any even I'm staring at a little ant. If I seem distracted, I've got an ant climbing over my camera lens. So if something goes a bit blurry, it is a so many legged creature going over the lens. Okay. All right, here's Worldschooling Wednesday. So today is the day we can talk about anything to do with home education, unschooling, worldschooling. So maybe I should just introduce myself. My name is Colin Clapp of Parenting, Passports and Profits. Let me just whack that up on the screen. If you've never met us before or never met me, I am 1/4. I'm the only male member of the family. And my lovely partner Ellie is getting some Ellie time in the lounge behind me. It's freezing cold here, so we've got a nice warm fire going, and we have 2 small girls, one who is 6, our oldest, and the other one is 15 months, and she has been born into a worldschooling adventure, hitting the road before she was 10 weeks old. So yeah, so we've been location independent or without a permanent home since February 2017. So past 3 years now, well into our 4th year. And most of that time was spent in Southeast Asia. If you've quickly done the maths, you'll realise if we've had a baby that the baby was born into the adventure, as I say. And we did go home to New Zealand. We're a New Zealand family. We travel on New Zealand passports. And we did go home to New Zealand to have the baby. And when I say home, we don't have a permanent home anymore. So our youngest was born in her granny's house. It was a lovely home birth experience. Both our children are home birth, water births, and they've been magical experiences for us. And so we're very glad we went home for that. And as I say, once she popped out nice and healthy, we looked at each other and went, yeah, let's continue with the adventure. So it would have been easy for us to say, no, we've had enough, and we're gonna be all serious, and we're gonna stay in New Zealand, and we're gonna rebuild our lives here. But we were just so happy with our new life. It was full of less. Less has proven to be more for us. We've got less stuff. We travel. We travel we travel very light. We travel very slow. We have 2 check bags and 3 carry-on bags now with the second baby. But within all of that is everything we need as a family of 4, including our sort of mobile office. I can reach out. This backpack here, which looks like a normal day pack, but it's a Condor. I can't even remember what it's called, but it's a Condor pack, and it's a military pack, but it's not. It looks like a sort of normal size backpack, and it is, but it's just the layout of the pack is very specific to my needs, and I can carry everything I need for a mobile office, including a bladder. Often found that day packs they would facilitate a water bladder or a laptop, and it took me a long while to hunt down a backpack that would facilitate a water bladder and a laptop, and that is my backpack. And if you want to find out where you can get that, if you head on over to, let me just turn that off. That's where you'll see a list of all the tools we use. That page is actually being updated. I was on Tech Tuesday yesterday, the last couple of Tech Tuesdays, I've dived behind the scene, showing you how we're rebuilding our resources page. I'm still in the process of that, and that's going to be getting a major overhaul. We've severely updated it with new tools that we're using and gear that we're using to be location independent. And so, yeah, watch out for that address. There's quite a lot there now, but there'll be even more in the coming weeks. So, yeah. So yeah, that is where you'll find out about myself, my partner Ellie. We haven't got much up about the girls, but you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook, and there's a lot more up-to-date stuff. Which reminds me, if you are tuning in on YouTube, please give us a little bit of love. If you like the video, please let us know. YouTube loves that. Subscribe to the channel. We are. I'll explain why I'm here and why I'm doing this, and how I'm trying to level up with live broadcasts. So all feedback is gratefully received. But the more the channel gets a little bit of traction, then the better the incentive I have to up my game. And so yeah, leave your comments, leave a thumbs up, thumbs down, anything just to show that you've seen, and let me know. Yeah, no, Colin, I really like that. Do that. Do a bit more of that. Do less of that. Can we see some of this? So we've introduced some hashtags into the level ups, and I'll talk about those in a minute. So why don't I take that opportunity now? We'll change camera, and I will ditch that. You can find out more about us there. If you want to know specifically about Ellie, you can head on over to elliemcguinness.com. She is a holistic health professional, and she blogs regularly over there, and you can find out all about her there. And myself, I provide online marketing services done for you, mainly content optimization, technical SEO, keyword research, but we can definitely help out behind the scenes with sort of website updates and email marketing and those sorts of things. And if you're interested in any of that, head on over to onlinemarketingdoneforyou.com and feel free to reach out and have a chat. Okay. So what is Level Up Live? Why is it here? Before we get into what does a day in the life of a world schooler look like? So I come to you as someone who is leveling up in my own way, and that is trying to level up in live broadcasting. And so this is my 23rd day in a row, Monday to Friday. I'm going live. And it's pretty much been the same time every day. So I started on Easter Monday. I think I went live during the day, and then I shifted to the night because I needed to guarantee I have a bit of peace and quiet around me, and the girls were in bed. And so it's become a late show for me. And of course, depending on where you are, it could be a first thing in the morning or mid-afternoon anyway. So, which reminds me, just remember, if you're just tuning in, it is an interactive show. Let me know where in the world you are. Just, are you in lockdown? Leave a yes in the chat, and feel free to comment more and come on the show. You can come on the show. It's dead easy to do. You just use the link on the screen, or it's in the chat. You should be able to just click on that and beam straight on in. So beam straight on in, and yeah, I'd love to know what lockdown looks like for you. So we've evolved. Let me go back to how the show has come about. I'll try to be quick, and then we'll get into the day in the life of a world schooler. So about a month or so ago, I was listening to a podcast where the podcaster was sort of challenging us to not use this COVID-19 time as a period where we say we haven't got time to do this. Now, I actually feel like I'm busier than ever, but I know what he was saying, and he was explaining that, and these are not all his words. This is my interpretation, but nothing's changed in the fact that we have 24/7, 24 hours in the day, 168 hours in the week. Nothing's changed there. It's how we choose to use that, and that has always been the case. How we choose to use our time. The difference here is that our freedom to choose the time has been taken away from many of us, and it's a reallocation of that time. But the point is, for for many of us, that means we've ditched a lot of the time commitments we have in terms of commuting and maybe activities that our children or ourselves would be doing, and so we are at home a little bit more. And he was just challenging us to use this time wisely. Don't waste it. If you want to level up in any shape or form, and it doesn't mean in a serious way. Maybe if you want to just practice your painting or your music or learn something new, just make the most of this time. It could be tidying up your garden or doing some DIY around the house. But of course, it could be leveling up on a professional level, learning a new skill that's going to boost your career or enhance your business. Around the world, learning establishments and online platforms are offering all sorts of discounts to entice you into their environment. So, not only have you got time, there's lots of financial incentives to level up and invest in yourself. Then the second thing that happened as I sort of listened to what Martin was saying was that I had a conversation with a gentleman that I'd never met, wonderful gentleman by the name of Trey Hitt, and Trey was in Mexico. We were introduced. Trey's a Worldschooling dad like myself, and we were introduced by a mutual friend, Lainey, who heads up We Are Worldschoolers and has been on the show. And Trey was trying to breathe life into an online accountability small business mastermind group within the Worldschoolers communities, which is all online at the moment, obviously. And I was keen to get involved, but with him being in Mexico and just the time that it was going out, it was just sort of clashing with our routines, and so I haven't been able to pull that off. But Lainey thought it'd be good if we spoke, and so we jumped on a call at a mutually convenient time, had a one-to-one, and it was really fascinating listening to Trey's story and what he was trying to do and where he's at. And as we swapped notes around the small business online world, I was able to share with him that in a previous life I had actually been an accountability partner, a coach, and had done that professionally for a number of years. I haven't done it for a number of years. I moved on from that life at some point, but I did it for a number of years, and I hosted a small intimate group, and had to refresh it. So as Trey and I were talking about accountability and growing business, I sort of wasn't too sure how I could contribute, but we sort of agreed we'd sleep on it and see what happens. So I got Martin's podcast sort of ringing around in my head a little bit. I got my conversation with Trey around accountability. This is all happening as COVID-19 is really kicking in, or lockdown's kicking in around the world, and Ellie and I were reflecting on what we could do and how we could be of help to others. And we made our diaries, our online scheduling calendars available. So if anyone wanted to chat about anything, they were welcome to do so. And a few people took that up, but I felt like there was definitely more we could do. Then I also noticed that a number of my peers and online inspirations, they were providing they were making themselves available in a kind of ask me anything type environment, and I felt that was something that I could do. That when we'd offered up our calendars, that was something we were thinking of, and I felt like there was more I could do in that space. And as I was sort of watching some of them do that, all these conversations came together around leveling up to make ourselves available. Lainey had challenged us around, dropping the language of social distance, social distancing, and I thought that was very, what's the word? Very can't remember, insightful, but we've got physical distancing, but there's no reason for social distancing, and so we can still have social connection. We just use these different platforms to make that happen. And so partly this is how it came about, because the fifth thing was like I had my own goal to level up around live video, and I've had this goal for a long while, and I'm beaming at you from using some software called Ecamm Live, which I'm running on my MacBook Pro, and It's a subscription-based service. It only works on Mac. There are equivalents on Windows, but this is awesome software. And I wanted to do more live video. I want to get better at it. And I've had the subscription for a while. I started off with a hit and a roar around something I tried about a year ago. And then I just fell off the wagon, so to speak. And I've been meaning to get back to it and been trying to get back to it. And then I went, as I was sort of reflecting on these things I've just shared with you, I was like, no, this is my time. This is my time to pull all those things together, use this time wisely, have some accountability, offer myself up for connectivity, offer myself up for Ask Me Anything, and get better at live video, and just press live. Just get out there and press live. So on Easter Monday, that's what I did. I pressed live and went live with Lockdown Level Up Live, and I've been going every day since. And if you've seen any of the previous shows, you'll know that I have been very open about this not being a polished show. I want to get better as an experiment, and I want to make myself vulnerable to mistakes and to learning, so that when you're watching, that you too can see that if you're going to level up, you've got to be willing to make mistakes. You've got to be willing to have some things go wrong. So I've had a few things go wrong on the show, and things haven't worked, and it's taken me a while to work out how to do things. But slowly but surely, I've been able to bring more into the show. You know, for example, if you do come on the show, we'll give you a big round of applause. Yay! Might even give you a DJ so I've got the ability to do these things. You know, it's how I can do the things like switch the camera, so I can go over here, and I'm coming at you from my Canon EOS, and let's just zoom back a little bit. Now, if you've been watching the show, you'll know that even the inclusion of this camera, which is a nice camera, but I'm not a photographer. I don't really know the ins and outs of it manually, but it can plug into my MacBook Pro and act as a webcam. So it gives me the ability to jump from cameras to cameras, you know, just like a television broadcast. And sometimes it's appropriate to go with this one here, and sometimes it's appropriate to go with this one here. I'll go back to the Canon and just sort of see if I can show you a little experiment. Over where my arm is reaching, there is a bedside lamp, and if I don't have that bedside lamp on, this is what I look like. And if I do have it on, this is what I look like. So hopefully, you know, it's just, unless I'd gone live, I would not be learning some of these things and how to do that. We can do screen shares with the software, so that should, so there you can see I've paused the video, and so yeah, I'm sharing my screen, but I can definitely go behind the scenes and show you things, and that's what we're sort of doing on what happened then. That's what we're doing on the other days of the week. So it took me probably about 2 weeks to get in the groove of how the how the software worked. What are some of the things I can do? You know, I can overlay transparencies, which reminds me. So, you know, even this, if you're new to the show and you are valuing that I am leveling up, and I'm looking to partner with you, and you can level up, yeah, please give us a like, subscribe to the show, let YouTube know that we're doing something right, leave a comment, and ring that bell so that when we go live, you'll hear more. And as we've got a lot of video content, and we will get it. We're getting better and better. We're just very slow. It's not our main priority, but we're slowly getting more content out there. So yeah, well, we welcome all the support, and tell us what you want to talk about. So for example, we're into week 5 now. This is, as I say, show 23, and I reckon it was around about show 18, 19 in that 3rd week that it was about midway through the week. It wasn't at the beginning of the week. I wanted to start bringing some themes and some structure into the show, And I was reminded that I'd tried to do this about a year ago while we were in Hoi An in Vietnam, and I had these hashtags in place. We have been using them on our Facebook page for quite a while, sharing some themed based hashtags every day of the week, and I thought that was appropriate to resurrect them. So on Monday we have Mashup Monday, and Mashup Monday is really all about anything to do with the online marketing world. We could be talking websites, SEO, email marketing, anything like that, and that's what Mondays are for. Tuesday, hashtag Tech Tuesday, and that's when we'll take a deep dive behind the scenes into the tools we use. So if you have a favorite tool that you want to share and show us what's working for you, or you're curious about any of the tools that we use, I remind you, if you want to see the tools that we are using, head on over to here. This page is getting a makeover, but it's got a lot of tools on there now, and there will be even more being updated of how we function as a location independent family. So if you head on over to that page, let us know in the chat what tools that you are using, or let us know what tools you'd like to be using, and would you like a demo behind the scenes? We can dive in and show you how those work. So yeah, make that happen. So that's Tech Tuesday. Here we are, Worldschooling Wednesday. And yeah, put that out there for Worldschooling families or aspiring Worldschooling families. There's many things we can cover, but I'm going to try and stick to the sort of the schooling side or the parenting side, and that's what we'll do. On Thursday, I am willing to sort of put on a bit more of a serious head. We've got hashtag Thoughtful Thursday, and we invite thought leaders on to share their deep and meaningful thoughts. You know, what are they reflecting on? How are they seeing things with a new perspective? And yeah, last week we had Di Manuel from Your Lifestyle Mentor come on. Di beamed in all the way from Canada. It was awesome to catch up with Di. He's also a father of 2 girls and a world-schooling dad, and our families crossed paths in Bali in Indonesia in 2018. Didn't see too much of each other, but I know Di does some really inspirational work working in the health and fitness space, similar to Ellie. But in the last couple of years, we've been spending more time working with men and, you know, pulling out or discovering some, you know, mental health challenges, reflecting on his own journey. And Di made himself extremely vulnerable on last week's Thoughtful Thursday show. And so, yeah, that's what Thoughtful Thursday is all about. I'll be back with that tomorrow. And then on Friday, we try to beam in the families. It is Family Friday, and that's when we try to get some other families involved in the show. And yeah, I'm working on how we're doing that. I'm trying to breathe life into a podcast, and yeah, that's interesting times. So a lot of those families are locked down at the moment, but yeah, I'm building up a database. We know when we started this journey, we knew of a few. We didn't know any personally, but we knew of a few. But now that we've been on the road as long as we have, and we've attended at least one event, and but we network in the Worldschooling communities, and now through the events that we've attended and the virtual events we've attended and spoken at now, we know so many Worldschooling families, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's hundreds of others, if not thousands of others, that are in different parts of the world. So I've made it a goal as part of this leveling up. The evolution of this show will evolve into meeting more of the families, and there'll be a sort of podcast style environment coming up, and I think that will be themed around the Family Friday. So watch that space. Okay, that's me. I'll just check the comments, make sure no one's wants to beam into the show, and I miss it. But what's going on there? Click the wrong button. So yep. Okay, so just one last time before I get tonight's topic. Where in the world are you? Leave a comment in the chat. Are you in lockdown? Say yes or no. and if you're feeling so inspired, just let us know more. Alrighty, okay, let's go back to here. Yeah, all right. So, which camera shall I go out to you? I'm going to stick with the Canon for now because I want to be focused on this camera. And so the question today is around, yeah. So welcome to Worldschooling Wednesday. I'm Colin Clapp from Parenting Passports and Profits, and today I'm asking the question: what is a day in the life of a world schooler look like? And this is an interesting question. It was posed to me by a fellow world schooler, Karen King, who heads up Worldschooling Central. I must leave a link in the description for that and encourage you to check out Karen's site. She hosts a Facebook group and a website and facilitates trips and is very much an established part of the world schooling community. And Karen's been asking some questions, and many of us world schoolers have been using her questions to sort of reflect. And one of her questions was, what does day-to-day life look like? And there was a number of questions under that, of which what does a normal world schooling day look like? So I thought I would just talk about that tonight. And in previous World Schooling Wednesdays, I've touched on definitions of world schooling through using her questions as an inspiration and getting started with world schooling. But today, what is a day like? And wow, that is a very, very interesting question. And I was trying to think, well, where do I go with that? Because we've been doing it for 3 years, and I'm not so sure I know what a typical day is. But that would be, the more I think about it, there is some patterns. I should just put this into context. So we see ourselves as unschoolers, and I've answered what is world schooling in a previous show as being having a global perspective. And in other words, you don't even have to travel to be a world schooler. It's just having a global perspective. But we birthed our eldest daughter into a mindset of home education. So this was before we were location independent, before we'd been traveling. We had no idea that this lifestyle even existed, or that we were going to be part of it. Had no idea. So we're from New Zealand. Our eldest was born in Christchurch, and she was born into, shall we say, a normal life. But we had already decided that she would be home educated, and I talk about that in some other videos, but I'm not going to go into that. But Ellie and I both felt strongly that that's what we wanted to do. And so from the moment she was born, something flipped inside us that we're not teachers, we're not trained teachers or anything like that. We've both got coaching backgrounds and have developed our own coaching skills. We're not formally trained, but we are personally trained. Lots of upskilling and personal development to develop those empathetic and educational facilitation type skills. And we both felt confident that that would help us as facilitators of our child's education. So our mindset was always that we are her first teachers. There's a book around that title, You Are Your Child's First Teacher. And as home educators, we valued all those sorts of resources. And so we started mixing with homeschooling families, home educators, right from the beginning, so that as she would have approached school age, we were well into the rhythm of what home education looked like. And it didn't take us long to meet unschoolers and discover that unschooling, whilst in my opinion, there's no dictionary definition, a common held belief around unschooling, or a common held view around unschooling, that that education should be child-led, and the carers, the parents, the educators should facilitate the child's lead of curiosity. Fundamentally, we are curious creatures. Children ask a lot of questions, and we felt the school system knocks it out of them. Whereas you take the unschooling route, you just feed off your child's energy and your child's natural curiosity, And we fell in love with that kind of philosophy and have run with it. And so when she was 3.5, we evolved into world schooling because of life circumstances. We were burned out through some business ventures that had gone wrong. We lost a lot, and we just needed a new way of life. And we discovered location independence. We felt like we could have a better quality of life living in Southeast Asia while we recovered and got ourselves back on our feet and kept our child's needs front and center. And so we just evolved into world schooling. And I share all this as a bit of a backdrop because you can probably quickly read between the lines that that doesn't necessarily lend itself to a typical day. But there are some key things in there that form a part of a normal day. And before I answer that, forgive me. Oh, excuse me. Pepper up my nose. I'll leave that in. It's live video. If you're watching this in the future, it was live when I did it, okay? Alrighty. So, on that note, so what is a typical day like? Well, I'm going to say one thing that I feel is very typical now of our day is our eating together, and that has always been there from birth, and has got even stronger as our eldest has got older, and still maintains with our youngest. And for the most part, we eat together all the time. Now, the exceptions to that were, there was a period of time when we were working really hard to get our online businesses going, and we were working in co-working spaces. And there was a time when we felt that sometimes it was easier. So what we did is this was typical for us in the first 3 years. We tag teamed the parenting. So one person would look after, I'd say the first 20 months was one child. And so one of us would go to work, usually in a co-working space, but sometimes in a coffee shop, and the other one would be at home or out and about with our eldest. And that worked really well. What we found was, though, in order sometimes to do a decent day's work, it was better if the person who was working got up early and left in order to come back in time for the evening meal. And that worked. As we've evolved, that continued a little while our youngest was with us in Vietnam. There was times when with Ellie, so obviously our dynamic changed when the second baby came along, and Ellie stayed at home a lot more, and I went to the co-working space. But where we were in Vietnam, the co-working space was within walking distance, about 20 minutes walk for me. And so the commute was tiny, and it was just long enough to sort of have a short podcast there and on the way back. And obviously Ellie was picking up a lot more of the parenting because she just needed to be around this tiny baby who's now not quite as tiny and is running around up and down and is a total bundle of joy. But the concept was still the same. One person parent, one person go to the co-working space. And yeah, we're not financially independent. We work very hard to make this lifestyle work. But we love it, and we don't want to swap it for what would be conventional way of life. We just lost interest in that. We would rather put all our efforts into making this work, and the ups and downs of life are shared through that. But so I'm digressing a little bit, but it's around this habit of the mealtime, always protecting the mealtime. So yes, we haven't always had breakfast together, but we've always had dinner together. And so when we're in Vietnam, for example, the girls would choose where we're going to eat, and then I would finish the co-working and I would walk to I would walk to one of the restaurants we were going to eat on, because when you're living in Southeast Asia, invariably you're eating out nearly all the time because it's just cheaper. It's just so much easier and cheaper to eat out. It's inexpensive. You don't have to do all the washing up and all that malarkey. There's nothing fancy about it. Sometimes you're sort of just eating off the street, but it's authentic, it's real, and we love it. And we've always made sure that we eat together as a family. Another thing is that we've never had television as in the traditional style of television. So a day in the life for us doesn't include picking up a remote control and surfing through the channels. We do watch things on a screen, but invariably it'll be like we'll sit down for a movie occasionally. We'll pick the odd thing for our eldest to watch. She does not have her own devices. She's not into screen time. We protect that as much as we can. When she turns 7, we will sort of look at how we can use screen time more, I don't want to say structured, but more as to facilitate her learning. And yes, I digress slightly. So television has never been part of our equation. That definitely doesn't exist in the day in the life, but definitely downloading a movie would be, putting on some kids style activities during the day occasionally, and not all the time. And I'm talking things like kids yoga, Jamie yoga. So the parent at home, if Ayla was feeling inclined, we might put that on. We probably put that on less now, because the internet here in France is where we are in this rural area is not that good, and we find if we try and put anything on during the day while the other person's upstairs trying to work, it's smashing the internet. So we ditch that. So let me come back to this what does a typical day look like? So I was alluding to the fact that co-working was a typical part of our day, and for the first 3 years it was, while we worked out what the hell we were doing in the online world and getting a foothold and understanding how we can make money and survive and thrive and move forward. And a lot of what we were doing was such a steep learning curve, we were just at it full throttle. And so, yeah, one person going to work. But the person left behind, we had apartments that would include swimming pools and playgrounds and parks and outdoors and nature. We always sort of thrived on the warm weather in Southeast Asia, but obviously in the strong heat of the day, we'd have to back up. But we'd look for things like libraries, indoor play centres, sometimes the shopping centres, because you knew they were cool and air conditioned. But we find them stressful. We try and stay out of shopping centres. They usually are the place where the indoor playgrounds are. And if we have to go to those we will. But yeah, other than that. But then when we moved to, so we lived in Malaysia for a long while and had an apartment, and that would be a very typical day, making the most of the facilities we had available. Bali was a little bit different, not so much in the way of facilities inside your house, so we had to get in Grabs and Ubers and taxis to get to swimming pools sometimes, although we could walk to some smaller ones, and a lot of restaurants had pools, and we got known around where we were and made welcome with our eldest would have been about 4 then, and she was the life and soul of some of these restaurants during the day, splashing around in the pool on her own. And that would be very typical. In Malaysia, we went back to Malaysia again and had a different apartment and pool living, but we also camped out around Legoland, and that may sound a little bit extravagant, but it wasn't. We bought a season's pass to Legoland, so a day pass is quite expensive, but a season pass or an annual pass is I think it was the cost of less than 2 days. So pony up for a big day, but you can't do it all in a day. Pay the extra to get the season or the annual pass, and we were there for nearly 2 months. And so if you've ever been to Legoland in Johor Bahru in Malaysia, you know what I'm talking about. It's it's like a ghost town around that part of the world. Very, very low key by Southeast Asian standards. You know, gone are the motorbikes and the busyness. It's the most unbelievably surreal place. And then there's this sort of modern shopping centre, all these high-rise apartments, no traffic around, and you walk through this small shopping centre, and that alone, that's hardly got any life in it. But you get to the end of it, and then boom, there's Legoland. And so while we were there, that became a typical part. And I'm going off of some tangents here, but meal times were always protected, you know, at one end of the day. And the reason I'm telling you about this is because when we made the decision to come to Europe, which was just before, it was all quite serendipitous that we came just before lockdown. We had planned to come in 2020, but we could not foresee what was going to happen. But you know, someone was looking after us because we were in the Philippines, and as much as we loved Asia and loved the Philippines while we were there and was enjoying that life, and if we'd been locked down in that environment where, you know, invariably much smaller houses, very limited kitchen space, no playground or gardens to talk of, and you wouldn't have been allowed out. Yeah, just the space would have been, it would have felt really tight and compact. And you know, we've got a lot of our friends that are in places like Thailand and Malaysia and Vietnam and Asia, and if they did have access to pools in apartments, those have been, even if they were like living there, they weren't allowed to use them, certainly in the main lockdown. So to come here to Europe, and we've got like 2 acres of land to look after. We've kind of turned it into a bit of an outdoor playground with the blessing of the family who own the house. There's woods right beside us. There's country farms and fields we can walk through. There's wind farms, and so we can walk outside and stretch our legs and go for runs if we wanted without seeing any life. And so we don't really feel locked down. Obviously, we can't integrate with society and maybe practice our French as we would like to, but we certainly don't feel locked down into the 4 walls. It's very easy for us to get fresh air. You know, when the sunny days come, we can just sit in the garden and play around the garden and climb trees and all sorts of things. So feeling very blessed in that way. So this is all very roundabout way of keeping this mealtime thing. So while we're in Asia, Southeast Asia, and then the Philippines, right towards the end, and that would like be coming up for our 3-year anniversary. And as I reflected on that and where we got to, certainly from the professional point of view, we reckoned it had taken us 3 years to learn what not to do, in order to find out what we were going to do, you know, in terms of skills and services and offerings that we could provide value to the world, and how we were going to make our way in the world as a location independent family. So it's like a sort of graduation that coincided with coming to Europe. But I said to Ellie when the time was coming, when we get to Europe, I am not going to be wanting to go to a co-working space. Like, in other words, I don't feel I need to leave the house to concentrate on what I need to do next. I feel now it's like I've done my degree, I've done my dissertation, and I'm going to graduate. Now I've got to go and get a job. So we've been doing work along the way, but we've gone off at different tangents and haven't specialized and you know, like I say, learned kind of what not to do. But there's been a lot of project-based type work in learning how the hell does this work? How does that work? You know, what are we gonna focus on? And I've been building these projects up so that I felt I needed a dedicated workspace to make sure that I wasn't distracted, that I could get in the zone. And Ellie would be the same. She would have limited time to work, and she would need to get out the house, make sure she wasn't distracted. What I said from my perspective, when we hit the ground in Europe, bar a couple of, shall we say, loose end details, I felt I didn't need to be project based as much. And what I wanted to do was more get into day-to-day rhythms of doing our work, and I didn't feel I needed to leave the house. In other words, I could be around the house a lot more. I could be available, and we could have a lot more floating around, uh, balancing each other's needs as the day flowed. So if one person needed a break with the kids, that person could be we could, instead of having one person at work, we could flip. One person do half a day, and then the other person do the other half a day, sort of thing. And also, if one person needed help, that help would be more easily available. And that's really what's happened as we've come to France. We we've just come straight into this very weird circumstances. But even if we didn't have these weird circumstances, the nature of this accommodation is lovely. It's the biggest place we've ever had, but it's very isolated, and so we couldn't. The girls can't just go out and go and play, other than going out in the garden. They can't just go into a cafe, and this is not lockdown. They couldn't get to a cafe. There's nothing. They couldn't get to a playground. They couldn't get to a park. I've got to drive them somewhere and leave them there, and that's not going to be practical. On a So there's a lot more logistics that have got to go into this type of thing. So uh, it's been a good practice ground for all being in the same house. And so this is a very, very long-winded way of saying what a typical day looks like. So work is a big part of our typical day. But I started this with meal times. But the fact that we are now not using co-working space, we are now eating together 3 times a day, and it is lovely. It is so lovely. We don't have an alarm. Alarms are not part of our life at this stage. As I say, when one person was getting up and going to work earlier, alarms would go off and that person would get out of the house. But there's no alarms anymore. We're going with the sort of natural rhythms of our energy levels and how we feel, and where where sleep is needed for all 4 of us. Trying to keep that in sync. But we all get up and we have breakfast together, and now we stop for lunch and have lunch together. And of course, we always maintain the evening meal before bedtime. And so a typical day for us will have a lot of play in it, play-led learning, and but it will all be built around meal times as being a family thing. And I don't know, maybe that's the framework for how we're trying to facilitate a lot of the soft skills. We spend very little time teaching our daughter any hard skills like, reading, writing, maths and all that. She is developing all those things pretty much of her own accord, and we just like nudge her occasionally, because we just follow her lead. And she can read. If she was here now and you listen to her read, she's a phenomenal reader. And we hardly did anything to facilitate that. I've talked about this in other videos. She picked up books and was reading them back verbatim to us at age 2. And that was just because I guess she saw us read as readers. We don't have, like I say, we don't have television, so she saw us reading. So she picked up books, and then she started. So we read to her all the time, and then she suddenly just started reading the books back verbatim from memory. And then slowly but surely we started facilitating how she could recognize the letters and make the sounds. And like I say, we hardly did anything there, and she just ran with it and picked it up. And now she's been reading chapter books for a long while, years. And she's 6.5 now, and she reads anything. And she's found her first child's encyclopedia inside this house. She just picks up anything and reads it. Magazines now, and she doesn't let long words get in the way. She's got a bit blasé now. We just sort of say, look, if you don't understand that word or don't recognise that word, do stop and tell us so that we can give you the pronunciation and all that. And she takes it all on board, and she's getting into French. She's always had an enthusiasm for French. Ironically or strangely, when we were in Bali, when she was, what was she been? She'd been 4. Um, and we found a lot of French people living in Bali, and so we bumped into the language there. And I was born in the UK and taught in the UK. I went to school in the UK, so I had learned French. I didn't do very well with it, but a lot of vocabulary sort of just sits in my upper recesses and just pops out every now and then. I've got no conversational skills. I can string a few words together and make myself understood, but I can't have a conversation. But so the vocabulary kept coming out, and so Ayla showed an interest in that. So we got out Duolingo on the iPad, and that's the only time she's really had any screen time of her own, supervised. Once she was bored or frustrated with that, the iPad went away, and she didn't use it for anything else, and that's still the case. But now she can pick up books and French books, and she's like reading them, and it's even today she's picked them up and she's reading, and she's the one leading the way with the pronunciation, and we're having to put it in Google Translate to see if we can get the sounds right. But but she leads that. We don't do anything. And interestingly, with our 15-month-old, it's been interesting to see in recent weeks we've spotted her developing similar traits around books. So there's a lot. We feel fortunate. This house is full of books. Like we couldn't ask for more. There's lots of positivity, personal development books. The family are amazing. A retired English couple, but love their mindset and their approach to life. And seeing all these books, Ellie and I are in our element. Not that I'm having that much time to read, but there's children's books, all sorts of things. And so Ayla's got all these books that she wouldn't normally carry around with her. But we do actually, we're pretty much paperless, but books are a part of what Ayla chooses to carry with her. And so she's now got access to all these other books by the family that are here. And we've noticed that our youngest, and so she's just 15 months old, we see her now sitting with books and just sort of sweeping the pages. And each day passes, you can see she's a little bit more intent in how she interacts with that book. And it's incredible to watch. And I guess it's incredible to watch because we're kind of seeing this is how our eldest got started. And just the sitting there and holding and turning the pages at that age, and I'm talking big books, not the sort of the fluffy books and the crinkly books, and like a real intentness in a body demeanor. This 15-month-old sitting on a couch, sort of, it's quite amazing. So I've been going just an hour, so I'm gonna wrap up. I don't know. Part of me thinking, did I really answer what a typical day is like? And I guess that's because there isn't a typical day. Child-led learning is exactly that. We literally respond to the child's needs of the day around our own commitments to work. Say like we always have one of us working, but the rest is as it flows, and each parent will have their own idea of what shall we do today, or what could we do today that keeps the children happy, or not, as the case may be. Don't get me wrong, we have our tantrums and our temper flares, and it's not all plain sailing, but that's how we roll, and everything is a learning opportunity. We walk out into the garden and pick flowers, there's a learning opportunity. And, bouncing into a child's encyclopedia is just allowing things like that to flourish. So libraries and libraries and playgrounds, even restaurants, everywhere offers a learning opportunity. So we just run with the natural rhythms of being present, doing our chores, doing our work, and trying to be happy. We believe happiness is a choice, and facilitate that into the learning. So on that positive note, as happiness is a choice, That was World Schooling Wednesday on Wednesday the 13th of May 2020. I hope you got something out of it. Remember, if you are new to the show, give us a bit of love. Let YouTube know you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Ring that bell and look out for more videos because they will be coming. Okay, I will be back with Thoughtful Thursday tomorrow on episode 24. So from me, Colin Clapp, Parenting Passports and Profits, I hope you have an awesome time wherever in the world you are, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, take care now. Bye-bye.